Good day. In today's day, I'm going to help you to understand what's in your interviewer's head and eventually to also try to bias them towards you in job interviews. And the first moment you can take advantage of during a job interview to read your interviewer would be during the small talk. Right in the beginning of the job interview, there is, a bit of informal discussions. How are you today, and so on. And I believe that's a unique opportunity for you to build rapport with your interviewer, because if you connect well, it's going to be significantly easier to understand each other and understand each other's feelings during that job interview. Okay, so there's some candidates who even say that they passed their interviews because they had a good rapport with their interviewer. Okay, so this will be the first moment. Now, what I would like to advise you when it comes to reading your interviewers is to pick your fights carefully. Okay, and what do I mean by this? For example, don't expect recruiters or HR business partners or HR professionals in general to be easy to read during these job interviews, because they're really good at interviewing people and at spotting human behavior. That's what they do. So lower your expectations, so to speak, when you interview with experts in this field. But you should also take advantage of opportunities while interviewing with people who are not, doing interviewing for a living. Right? For example, technical people, technical employees who also will usually screen your subject matter expertise, or directors, VPs. They don't interview people for a living, so you could also, expect more to be more successful with these people rather with a recruiter, say, for instance. Okay. The next point I want to talk about here when it comes to improving your chances to read your interviewer during your job interview would be to focus on building a dialogue with them. Okay, because for an interviewer, the easiest way to conduct their interview would be to ask you some questions, expect some answers, eventually ask you one or two follow-ups, and then move on with the other candidates, right? Whereas if you manage to have a conversation, a dialogue with them, to build a funnel, to make them to make the conversation trend in the direction that's your strength, then you're in a significantly better spot, to improve your chances to pass job interviews. Okay, for example, salespeople who are assumed to be good at interviewing and understanding human behavior sometimes intentionally omit key details in their answers with the precise purpose to invite for a follow-up or a challenge question. Hey, but what were some interesting results that you can share with me? And this way you would build a conversation, a dialogue, and therefore, people are easier to read when you have a dialogue with them, right? So it should go without saying this, right? The next thing I would advise you to do if you want to improve your chances to read your interviewer would be to interview slower. Okay, so don't interrupt your interviewer before they finish asking their question, and try to be more intentional about reading the room in these job interviews. Some people would even prefer keeping a note nearby. What does this guy think about me during the actual job interview? Okay, but interviewing slowly will improve your chances to listen better to clues about your interviewer. Okay, the next thing you could do in order to improve your chances to bias the interviewer, but also to read the interviewer, something that you might find is obvious, yet very few people do this well, that is to maintain eye contact. Okay, to maintain eye contact throughout your performance, don't overdo it. It might, not all the time, but maintaining eye contact and keeping an eye on your interviewer will, yield some benefits in many cases, because what happens, interviewers are also human beings, and we are all built on biases. So if they are skeptical about something you say, chances are, they might, have some reaction that you might spot, okay, which could also capitalize on. If you spot like there's something going on, something that they're not happy with, you're skeptical, they like what you're saying, you could interject, hey, is this what you're expecting? Is this, or otherwise I can come up with another example. But again, maintaining eye contact and keeping an eye on your interviewer will give you some very useful clues in case your performance doesn't go in the direction you expect, right? If you seriously doubt about what they think about the way you're answering their interview questions, don't just think of interjecting right in the middle of the answer, but what you could also do is to end your answers with a question. Hey, is this what you're looking for? Does this fully answer your question? And this way, if you end with a question, whenever you give a more comprehensive type of answer, you could also have an extra layer of trying to see how they would react to this. This is something also I found quite relevant, like baking in that ending with a question on most answers, right? And final tip I wanted to share with you would be something that's coming from employers interviewing playbook, and that's a quite common technique in high-performing companies, especially for senior executive types of roles, would be to have this interviewing experience as a personal experience, make it as personal as possible. Even some screening rounds happen over dinner, for some more important types of roles. So what if you took this to your advantage as a candidate, try to make your interviewer your friend, okay? Because if you speak to someone on a more personal level, chances are you will also they will also trust you more and open up a bit more, and therefore you'd be able to read what they think about you during a job interview. So this was my main tips when it comes to reading your interviewer. I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.